All right, welcome back, crew. It is November. We are going to draw a pumpkin today. So, first thing you want to do is go to this wrench up here on the left and click on this canvas button and say turn on the drawing guide. And then we're going to edit the drawing guide and turn on symmetry. And you get this line in the center of your page. And then if you pick one of these colors, you can pick what color the line is. I like mine to be like so barely visible, so I'm gonna pick like this light blue. So there's my line right here in the middle, barely visible. Now on your layer, you want to turn on drawing assist. Now what this is gonna do is it will let you draw, but it draws on both sides. And this is really cool for drawing symmetrical things or faces, or like in our case, we're going to draw a pumpkin. So what we're going to do is draw the center part of the pumpkin. And you can see my line is a little wobbly. That's okay. But if you want to make it more stable, you can actually like make a copy of this brush. So just click duplicate. And then on the brush you just made, you could name this brush something else and say like my brush. So we'll say like my brush. And then if you want it to be more stable, like easier to draw, go to the stabilization part and turn the streamline way up and the stabilization way up. And so what this does, so here's me drawing without stabilization. And then if I draw with the stabilized brush, the one called my brush, this one has more stabilization turned on. Oh. And look how like clean that looks. It looks like I have a super stable hand, but really it's just kind of smoothing out my lines for me. So if you want it to look like more clean, more professional, go try turning on stabilization. All right, and let's do this center part of the pumpkin here. So we're gonna make this center part of the pumpkin and then drag it. Also, I noticed in some of the examples people sent me, you might have had like a little gap here. Let me see if I can duplicate it. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. So if I draw with an airbrush, so let's take an airbrush for example, and then I fill it in. See this little line right here? So one of the things you can do to get rid of that line is when you fill, see the threshold at the top right here? So like right here, if you watch right here when I do it. Okay, so watch like right here. I'm gonna do it again. If you drag it and hold, see that threshold right there? Now watch that threshold as I drag and hold this, and watch for this line. See that line? If I drag to the right, I can get rid of that little gap. So I'm just dragging that threshold to the right and that gets rid of the gap. So that's very similar to like the magic wand threshold. It depends on how close the colors are and like how much forgiveness this thing gives you. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to my inking brush and go down to syrup, and I'm gonna use the stabilized one, and we will draw our center pumpkin here. And that's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna modify it anyways. Okay, so there's the center of our pumpkin, and then I'm actually gonna make a new layer and put it under this one and also turn on drawing assist here. And now now we're gonna make the rest of the pumpkin right here. Okay, and now we're gonna do that again, another layer. This time I'm going backwards again behind those other two. And you want to make sure, so let me show you what I'm doing. You want to make sure you're actually closing the loop on these. Otherwise, what's going to happen if I don't close the loop, so if I left a little gap there, when I go to fill them, it will fill everything. But I only want to fill what I'm drawing in. So as long as it's closed, you can fill it in. So that's why I'm drawing full shapes. Oh, and look, I need to fix part of my top. It's way too bumpy up there. We're actually gonna do something like this. And maybe we'll do one more. We might end up deleting this. This might look like too much, but I'll reference drawing assist. And let's do another, just little small ones here. Maybe a slightly bigger. Okay, that looks kind of like a pumpkin. So the reason I did these different layers is because now if I select these, so I'm going to say select, now I can go draw on top of it. And one of the things we're going to try is we're going to try drawing on top of it with a slightly darker color. So we're just going to go just drag this down a teensy bit. And now I'm going to go pick an airbrush. I'm going to pick like a soft blend airbrush. I'm on my top layer, my front layer, and I have an airbrush selected, and oh, I want to turn this one off actually. I don't want drawing assist on this layer. I'm just going to add some shadows here. Okay, and then we're going to go do the same for this. Make a new layer, turn off drawing assist, select this one, and then we're going to paint shadows on this one above it. And then we're also going to paint a shadow over here. And if you did too much shadows, you can just put something on your eraser, another airbrush on your eraser. I'm just going to do the same kind of brush, the soft blend. And I'm going to erase some of my extra shadows just to get like a nice little curve there. Oh, whoops, I want that as an eraser, not a marker. Okay, and then we have our little shadow over here as well. So select this again. And then we're going to do the same down here, new layer, select the layer below it. And then we're going to paint shadows again. And then we're going to do it one more time. Select this one, and then put a layer above it. And then we will paint shadows again. And I'm going to need a smaller brush for this little edge over here. All right, so that gives us kind of like a basic pumpkin shape. And then if you want, you can kind of play with these layer styles. Let's see if any of these make it look cool. We're just going to leave them all as normal. Okay, so we have our pumpkin. Now what we can do is we can actually group all these together. Group, and we'll just name this pumpkin. Come on, show me my keyboard. Pumpkin. Okay, so now I have a group of pumpkin, and I have some shadows and some chunks of pumpkin. And now if I move the whole group around, they're all stuck together. Okay. So I could like resize my group if I wanted like a big, thicker pumpkin, or I could make a short, fat pumpkin. So let's say I'm gonna make it slightly wider as well. If you click this uniform button down here, it'll actually do it'll like keep it in scale. If you click freeform, it'll let you resize it like without keeping it in scale. Okay, so there's my pumpkin. I'm gonna try to keep it on my center line here. And then let's now add a stem. So now we're gonna add a stem to our pumpkin. I'm gonna go back to inking, back to my brush. This will be called stem. And I'm actually gonna drag the stem under the pumpkin layer. And then just draw a stem. Oh, and same thing, you want to make sure you are closing the stem. So the one I just drew was not closed. So we're going to draw a stem. So what I'm talking about, make sure you actually close the loop on it so you can fill it. And then we'll do the same thing we did on the stem where we just select it, put a new layer above it, and draw a slightly darker green shadow with an airbrush. So this is a little bit different than what we did the other day because we're giving stuff depth inside of it. And we're not using the blur tool. Now we're using the airbrush tool. Now, one thing we haven't done is done any highlights. So we can do the highlights the same way, actually. We can just select these and then just do a lighter highlight with the airbrush. We just want to do the highlights the opposite side of the shadow that we did. So we could do the same down here. And I'm just going to add the highlights on the same layer as the shadow. So we'll select this. And then on this layer, we'll... Oh, so now that we're doing orange, if you hold your finger on one of these colors, it brings up this circle. And now I've picked that orange. And so now I can go do a lighter orange. And on this layer, we're just going to do a highlight. Whoa, too big, too big. And then we're going to go do the same down here. So select this one and then draw on top of it. And then select this one and then draw on top of it. And kind of see what we're doing here. Just drawing in some little highlights on our pumpkin here. And then same for this last one, select this one and then draw on top of it. All right, so there's a pumpkin. You could also, if you wanted to, we could merge all these together and just pinch them together. And now we have a full pumpkin. And we could say, liquefy on there. And what that'll let us do is kind of like manipulate this so that it looks more like an actual pumpkin instead of this perfect one we've made. So we could make this kind of look more like a messed up, realistic pumpkin by not making it so symmetrical. All right, and then if you want to carve something into it, we'll just add another layer and pick a dark color and go back to ink. And I'll probably turn the layer assist back on for this, drawing assist. And now I'm gonna make a face on my pumpkin here. And it looks like that's a little too light still, so I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. Yeah, that one was a little too light. And if you don't want the drawing assist on, like if you don't want it to look symmetrical, you could totally turn the drawing assist off. I just like my eyes looking symmetrical. And then I'll probably just do a little pumpkin nose here. And now we'll do a smile. And then what else I like to do is I'll turn this off. So I'll turn off my drawing assist and then just go erase some of the teeth in here. Whoa. I want my eraser to be my same brush I was using though, and not super giant like that. So now I'll just come erase a couple parts of it. And the eraser might be easier to use the one without the stabilization because the stabilization does kind of like redirect your brush a little bit. And what I mean by that is if I want to draw a little tiny circle, so see how it's kind of like controlling where my brush goes? It's not letting me like scribble. So that's why erasing it might be easier to use the one without the stabilization. And sweet. So now we got a cool pumpkin going here. I'm actually gonna make this tooth a little bit bigger. There we go. Looks like somebody's actually been carving this now. All right, so now we got a pumpkin going here. And the other thing we can do, so now I'm gonna select this layer, select, make a new layer. And now I'm gonna go to my airbrush again. Airbrushing. And I'm gonna pick a bright, like yellowy color. And now I can like draw in here and make it look like there's light in there. And I'm just turning my opacity down and making my brush bigger, and that's how I'm getting like these this kind of glowy thing up here. And then in the very middle of this light, I'm actually going to make a white. All right. So now we have a pumpkin with a glow. And what else could we do? We could probably add some little other glows inside of there. So if I select this again, and now we'll just do a little highlight with the inking brush again and the stable one. And we're just going to add a little tiny, make sure you're on a new layer so we can modify this if we need to. Oops. So what I'm coloring is when this light is like shooting this way. So let me unselect this so I can kind of give a little lesson here. So this light is in here. Actually, let me do it in red so you can see it. So the flame, right, is like right here. And then the light is going to come like this. And so since this pumpkin is kind of thick, the light would be bouncing off of this little ridge right here. So that's what we're making. So we're going to go back to it. I'm going to erase this line in there. And we're going to make another little ridge on the nose right here also. And it might hit this little ridge over here. And it might hit this little ridge over here. And yeah, the other thing we can do now is we don't have to leave those super bright. We can turn them down. Okay, so the other thing we're gonna do now, it's starting to look pretty good. We can actually also change the color of this if we need to. So if we wanted like a different color of fire, I think what we have right now is pretty good, but we could change it if we wanted to, if you wanted like a different color. Oh, you'd want on the, not the white layer, you'd want on the yellow layer down here. So that's kind of cool if we wanted like blue fire, red fire. Then you could make it like brighter too, or like more intense, more brighter. We're gonna leave the initial yellow I had for now. And then one of our last steps will be, let's change the background color to like a dark blue. Maybe dark purple, I kind of like that. And another thing we could do is, let's make a copy of this. And let's play with the layer styles on our pumpkin. You might not have to do this, I just kind of want to see how this behaves. If there's anything I kind of like, I kind of like making my pumpkin darker. So I just like my pumpkin a little darker. I think I made it too light to begin with, so I'm just going to do that. I kind of like that. All right. I think we're probably done. Maybe let's do one more little tricky thing. Let's put purple. Let's fill this with purple. And then let's just go through here and see if any of these make it look cool. Actually, that did look kind of cool. What is it on? Saturation? Look at how that makes the flame look in there. That's kind of cool. Well, I like that. I'm going to leave mine like that. And that is our pumpkin. Good work, guys. Send me your pumpkins. Show me what you got.